Good evening, America. Tonight, the most powerful man on earth walked into the most secure room in the world to make a decision that would affect every nation, every oil market, every military base, and every family paying elevated prices at the gas pump. He sat down with his Secretary of State, his Vice President, and his top national security officials. He had the deal on the table. He had the pen in his hand. The whole world was watching. And then, after 2 hours behind closed doors in the White House Situation Room, Donald Trump walked back out. And he said nothing. No deal announced. No war resumed. No signature. No decision. Just silence. And tonight, America deserves to know exactly what happened in that room, why the most decisive president in a generation could not make the most important decision of his presidency, and what the silence from the Situation Room means for the war that has now entered its 92nd day with no end in sight. Stay with me, because today was the most dramatic single day of this entire conflict, and every detail of it matters. Let us start from the beginning of today, because the events unfolded in a sequence that tells the full story of how close this war came to ending and why it did not. This morning, President Trump posted on Truth Social and announced he would be entering the Situation Room to make, in his exact words, a final determination on the Iran deal. He had spent the previous 12 hours publicly laying out his conditions. He posted them clearly and bluntly for the whole world to see. Iran must agree that they will never have a nuclear weapon or bomb. Those were his exact words. The Strait of Hormuz must be immediately open with no tolls for unrestricted shipping traffic in both directions. Iran must remove all mines from the waterway within 30 days. The United States naval blockade of the Gulf of Oman would be lifted. And the enriched uranium that Iran buried underground after last year's strikes on its nuclear facilities would be, and this is Trump's own phrasing, unearthed by the United States in close coordination with Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency, and then destroyed. And then Trump added 4 words that stopped every financial analyst, every diplomat, and every oil trader cold. No money will be exchanged. No money until further notice. The sanctions relief Iran has been demanding as its central condition for signing anything is not coming. Not yet. Maybe not at all. No money until further notice. The world read those conditions and held its breath. Markets moved. Oil prices shifted. And every diplomat who has been working on these negotiations for weeks looked at Trump's list and started calculating whether this was the beginning of a deal announcement or the beginning of a collapse. Then Iran responded. And the response was as direct and as damaging to the deal as anything Tehran has said since the ceasefire began. Iran's foreign ministry came out and said publicly, clearly, and without any diplomatic softening that there are no negotiations taking place on Iran's nuclear program. None. Not ongoing. Not paused. Not stalled. According to Iran's foreign ministry, nuclear talks are simply not happening. And Iran's state-run Fars news agency went even further, pushing back directly on Trump's Truth Social post by stating that Trump's conditions raise issues that contradict the provisions of the agreement's text. Iran is saying the deal Trump described this morning is not the deal that is actually on the table. The conditions Trump laid out publicly, the ones he walked into the Situation Room prepared to demand, do not match what Iranian negotiators have agreed to in Doha. That contradiction is not a communications problem. It is not a translation issue. It is not two governments accidentally using slightly different language to describe the same thing. It is two governments publicly describing fundamentally different versions of a deal that supposedly exists. Either Trump is describing conditions that Iran never accepted, or Iran is publicly denying commitments its own negotiators made in private. Both of those possibilities are deeply alarming, and one of them is true tonight. Now let us talk about what happened inside the Situation Room, because even though the meeting was classified and no official statement was released about what was decided, the reporting from people with knowledge of the session tells us a great deal. Trump gathered his senior national security team for a meeting that lasted approximately 2 hours. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was there. Vice President J.D. Vance was there. Earlier in the day, Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar had met directly with Rubio at the State Department, a sign that the last-minute mediation effort was still in full swing, even as the Situation Room meeting was being set up. The Pakistani foreign minister's presence in Washington on this particular day, sitting across from Rubio hours before Trump's final determination meeting, tells you that the deal was close enough that the key mediator needed to be physically present in the same city in case something broke in either direction and needed to be managed in real time. And then Trump walked out, and there was no announcement. An administration official confirmed to CNBC that the meeting concluded after roughly 2 hours and that it remained unclear whether Trump planned to sign off on the emerging agreement. That phrase, "it remained unclear," is Washington language for the president did not decide. 2 hours in the most secure room in the world with the most senior officials in the American government, and Donald Trump walked out without telling any of them what he was going to do. Here is why that matters so enormously, beyond just the immediate drama of the moment. This is now the third time in 8 days that a deal announcement has been imminent and then failed to materialize. Trump announced the deal was largely negotiated on Saturday, May 23rd. No signing. Trump posted his conditions this morning and announced a final determination meeting. No signing. Each time the moment of resolution approaches, something pulls it back. And the pattern is telling you something important about the real state of this negotiation. Let us now be very precise about what the deal actually contains, because the detailed reporting from inside the negotiating process gives us a clear picture that is significantly different from what is being said publicly by both governments. According to the most detailed and sourced account available, the proposed memorandum of understanding would work as follows. Over a period of 30 days, Iran would allow shipping in the Strait of Hormuz to return to pre-war levels. Iran is demanding that the U.S. blockade on its ports be lifted at the same time, not in phases based on performance, but simultaneously. The memorandum would also call for U.S. military forces to withdraw from the vicinity of the waterway. Iran would remove the mines it has placed in the strait within 30 days. And Iran's highly enriched uranium stockpile would not be surrendered before the deal takes effect, but would instead become the subject of the 60-day follow-on negotiations. On the nuclear question specifically, the memorandum includes Iran committing to never pursue nuclear weapons, but it does not include Iran stopping uranium enrichment before signing. It does not include Iran handing over or destroying its stockpile of approximately 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium immediately. It includes Iran agreeing to negotiate over those questions in the 60-day window that follows. That is a critical distinction. A commitment to negotiate is not a commitment to surrender. And Iran's public denial today that any nuclear negotiations are even taking place suggests that Tehran may not even be prepared to commit to negotiating seriously, let alone to delivering the nuclear concessions Trump has been describing publicly. And here is something Trump said yesterday in a cabinet meeting that deserves far more attention than it received. Sitting at the cabinet table with Rubio and Defense Secretary Hegseth beside him, Trump said Iran is negotiating on fumes. Fumes. He was describing Iran as a country so weakened by the war, the blockade, and the economic damage that it has almost nothing left to negotiate with. And yet the same country that is negotiating on fumes just fired a ballistic missile at an American military base in Kuwait. The same country negotiating on fumes is rebuilding its drone production during the ceasefire. The same country negotiating on fumes is firing warning shots at commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz and publicly denying that nuclear negotiations are taking place. If Iran is on fumes, it is using those fumes very strategically. Let us talk about something that happened today that went almost completely unreported in the coverage of the Situation Room drama, because it reveals the full human and economic cost of this war continuing without resolution. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins spoke at the Ronald Reagan National Economic Forum in California today and delivered a warning that every American farmer and every American consumer needs to hear. She said that the Iran conflict and the Strait of Hormuz disruption are driving up fertilizer prices while exposing what she called long-term vulnerabilities in America's agricultural supply chain. She said, and I want every person watching this to hear these words, farm security is national security. If we cannot feed ourselves and fuel ourselves, we will no longer understand what freedom looks like or tastes like. She announced that the largest ammonia plant in the world would break ground within 30 days after permitting was accelerated, and she predicted that fertilizer and fuel prices would come down immediately once tensions with Iran ease. But tensions with Iran have not eased. Trump walked out of the Situation Room without a decision, and American farmers are still paying the price of a war that is now in its 92nd day. The global picture is equally alarming. International economists have confirmed this week that the Iran war is having a disproportionate impact on the world's most vulnerable nations. Higher fuel and fertilizer prices, risks to jobs and livelihoods, disrupted supply chains reaching into every corner of the developing world. Myanmar's farmers cannot get what they need to plant. African nations that depend on imported grain are facing food price inflation driven by shipping disruptions. Countries that had nothing to do with the decisions made in Washington and Tehran on February 28th are paying the highest price per capita for a war between two powers on the other side of the world. That is the hidden human cost of 92 days of conflict without resolution. Back at the Strait of Hormuz, the situation remains deeply unstable. Iran is currently allowing approximately 24 ships per day to transit the strait after coordinating with IRGC naval forces. Before the war, more than 100 vessels per day moved through the waterway. The strait is not open. It is partially conditionally under Iranian management, and the memorandum, as currently drafted, requires Iran to remove all mines from the strait within 30 days of signing. The mine removal requirement is one of the least discussed but most operationally significant provisions of the entire deal. Iran laid mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Those mines are still there. And even if a deal is signed today, every ship that enters the strait for the next 30 days will be doing so in a waterway that is still being actively demined. That is not free and unrestricted navigation. That is the beginning of a very long and very dangerous process of restoring something that was destroyed in a matter of days and will take months to fully rebuild. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton said today, and his words carry significant weight in Republican security circles, that giving Iran any control over the Strait of Hormuz would be a mistake. Bolton's view represents a substantial faction inside the Republican Party that believes the current deal framework, even if signed, will be remembered as a strategic defeat dressed up as a diplomatic victory. Bolton is not alone in that assessment. Senator Wicker called it a disaster. Senator Graham questioned whether the war was worth fighting if this is where it ends. Former Secretary of State Pompeo called it not remotely America first. And now Iran's own foreign ministry is saying Trump's public conditions contradict the text of the agreement, which means the deal Trump would sign is not the deal Trump is describing to the American public. There is one more thing you need to know tonight, something that Iran's government did today that is being buried under the Situation Room coverage, but which reveals exactly where Tehran's head is at. A large anti-American banner was hung across a bridge in Tehran today. Written in Persian, it reads, "Our cannons are full," a reference to the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is telling its own people, while negotiating a deal in Doha and denying nuclear talks to the press, that its weapons are loaded and ready. That banner is not propaganda aimed at Washington. It is a message from Iran's new supreme leader to the Iranian people about what this negotiation means to the Iranian state. It means Iran has not been defeated. It means Iran is negotiating from strength, not from surrender. And it means that whatever piece of paper eventually gets signed, the government of Iran intends to present it to its own people as a victory, not a capitulation. So here is the full picture as of tonight, May 30th, 2026. Trump announced a final determination meeting. Iran denied nuclear talks are happening. Trump's conditions contradict the agreement's text, according to Iran. Trump sat in the Situation Room for 2 hours. Trump walked out without deciding. The deal is not signed. The war is not over. The strait is partially open under Iranian management. American farms are paying higher fertilizer prices. The world's most vulnerable nations are paying even higher costs. Iran hung a banner in Tehran saying its cannons are full. And John Bolton says giving Iran any control of the strait is a mistake. 92 days. Hundreds of strikes. Thousands dead in Lebanon alone. A global energy crisis. A fractured Republican Party. A resigned intelligence director. And tonight, no decision from the most powerful man in the world. America, here is my question for you tonight, and it is the most direct one I have asked on this channel. Trump walked into the Situation Room this afternoon to make his final determination on the Iran deal. He walked back out 2 hours later without announcing anything. Iran says there are no nuclear negotiations. Iran says Trump's public conditions contradict the deal's actual text. Iran hung a banner in Tehran today saying its cannons are full. Knowing all of this, here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Trump should sign whatever deal is on the table right now and end this war, even if it is not the complete victory he promised? Or do you think the silence from the Situation Room today is actually the right answer, and America should hold out until Iran meets every single condition Trump listed this morning on Truth Social? Drop your answer in the comments right now. This is the moment. This is the decision. And it is being made in your name. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this story will break again tonight. We will be here